Hi, I'm Rehan Poncha. I'm an Olympian and Arjuna awardee in the field of swimming. And through my 3 decades of being connected to competitive sport, I have had the good fortune of traveling the world, competing with the best and also meeting the best athletes from around the world. And through my association with Moha, I have the pleasure of inviting on our show today Dr. Ram H. Shroff, the director of Vedisri Private Limited, to talk to him about why he felt the need to conceptualize a show that we are going to bring to you. A show that will be centered around my conversations with athletes, our best athletes from our country across sport in India, learning from their life lessons, what they went through to get to the top, their goals for the future, and most importantly, their perspective on sport. So for my young audience watching, before we dive into speaking to our individual guests, we'd love to hear from Ram and what he has to say about behind his idea and his inspiration to create a show such as this. Ram, thank you for being here, creating a show like this, and welcome to the show.
Yeah, hi. Thanks, Rehan, for having me.
So Ram, can you tell us a little bit more about what inspired you to start this series for athletes?
I think one, of course, is at a very small scale or level. I've played sport all my life. I still remember the very first day at the age of 9 where my father took me to the Amateur Riders Club here at Mahalakshmi, horseback riding. And I still remember very vividly that experience. And then there was a period where instead of them forcing us, which is my brother and I, we're twins, to go and ride, there was a time when they had to actually tell us that, look here, hold on, don't get so passionate about it. So it's something that has been right through our life. We competed at the club level, then competed at the national level. And of course, then moving on to the next generation, our kids also competed, but of course in another sport, which is golf. And one has seen all the, for want of a better word, trials and tribulations that any athlete goes through. Though, as I said, at a very different level than what, people like you have been through, who have been at a national and, successful nationally and internationally. So I think that always made us feel that why not be associated with sport, because such a tremendous space, which inspires so many things. There are so many learnings from sport which are so reflective and useful in life. As much as our country needs, people need to support sports, as many corporates are not. I know that there are many corporates who are now. One example is definitely Jindal Steel, I think, is doing some tremendous work, which one has read about. So we thought in our own small way, and having learned through our own personal experiences what it means and what an athlete has to go through, we said, let's do an episode which kind of would at least reflect on the lives and the kind of passion and the struggles that the athletes go through, their family goes through, and the entire kind of circle around them. And kind of put it out for people to appreciate and learn from. So that's how kind of the idea started. And then, of course, we met you and set this up.
I tell you what I felt, where your passion really came through, which resonated with me, is that irrespective of what level I got to within my sport, I always felt that when I swam, I had a lot of support, tremendous support. But what I lacked is mentors and role models. And at times when I was winning and competing and doing well, I felt arrogantly like I do not really need the world's advice. But at a point in my career when I had those lulls and I plateaued through my performances, I was almost craving mentors. And for, to create an idea such as this, where like you said, you learn from life experiences of athletes that have gone through so much to reach the pinnacle of their sport. It's almost like a mentorship series, if I may, go out and call it that, where young athletes today, young parents within sport also get to learn and understand what it actually takes to become the best.
No, I think if we can achieve that, that's a huge, huge kind of, I would say, feather in our cap. It's a small initiative, and we are certain that we want to build on this more and more. But I agree with you, because at one level, sport is a very individual journey. Even if you're a team player, which I'm sure you know much more than what I have or what I do. But being individual, there are times when you need that mentorship more than ever. Right? One is, of course, at the skill level. where you need a mentor or a coach who's going to guide you through how to improve your skill. But I think when a mentor is needed, especially during those lows,
Right.
and also some of the highs can take you to a different high, which also you need to be brought down. So I
Correct.
think a mentor
Yes.
can play both or various roles. And again, as you rightly said, that if we can in a small way, this show or the series can reflect or help in that to a lot of aspiring athletes,
Sure.
it'll be something incredible. So
Right.
I wish that it does, yeah.
While you had this idea of creating something like this, was there a specific moment or life experience that sparked your interest in creating a platform such as this to bring on athletes to speak?
So, I think, again, whatever one does in life is through personal experiences, right?
Right.
And or you get inspired by someone else's experience. As far as my own or this specific reason or the what kind of inspired us was, sitting with a bunch of friends and some of their kids who are, athletes, stroke. In our case, of course, golf has now become a little bit of a center of this thing because of our kids play the sport competitively and now at college in the US. One is seen again, they are always looking and talking about these role models, stroke mentors, as we discussed, of what they do in life on and off the field.
Yes.
How they maintain their diet, stroke nutrition, what are their kind of professional journey in terms of coaching, what is the entire infrastructure around them, because it's whenever you look at an athlete, forget a team, even that one team player, there's a whole huge ecosystem around that person.
Correct.
Which everyone needs to learn from when one needs to go up the ladder. So listening to all of these things, and these discussions with friends and family and kids who play, I think that's what inspired me. I said, look, if we can reach out with your help to some of these other athletes in India, why not, put a show like this forward and see if it helps the larger kind of system or aspiring athletes.
Yes.
And also, having said that, in our country, which because you've been an athlete all your life, no sport gets the kind of prominence like cricket does.
Sure.
Like everything gets overshadowed by cricket.
Sure.
I'm not saying that's bad, that's great. But then again, one wants to bring others out because there are so many other athletes, right?
Yes,
Of course, now
absolutely.
in shooting, we're doing that much better, as we have seen in the recently concluded Olympics. But there's so many fabulous athletes across different disciplines. And I think all of them need that little moment in the sun.
Correct.
I'm not saying that we're going to, we've done this on a huge canvas, but yes, it's a starting point. And I hope people kind of take off from that.
Let me talk about just one thing you said. You talk about everybody needs their moment in the sun. And while I show attempts to tell the life stories of, success stories of all these athletes, let me speak only from my personal experience that irrespective of the number of articles in the press or photo shoots or brand collaborations that I may have done over, say, 15 or 20 years, athletes, and I speak for all actually, I correct myself, work incredibly hard, right from a very young age to pursue their goals and dreams. And what we look for, yes, we want sponsorships, we want monetary support, we want emotional support, but at the end of the day, every athlete, whether it is Virat Kohli, and I guarantee you he feels the same as, an athlete, a young athlete that's starting his journey out at district level, is for somebody or many people to just celebrate his effort and journey, irrespective of the color of the medal he may or may not bring. So when you hear stories of, say, Sunil Chetri, who is our most celebrated footballer, having to go up on Twitter a couple of years ago and put out a tweet saying, Indian team is playing,
audience,
please come and watch. But the response to that was, we finally had a stadium full of athletes. And that was the celebration of himself and his team. So in a small way, like you say, our show will attempt to, and I think will be successful at really not only learning from our athletes, but also celebrating who they are and, of course, their success.
Absolutely.
So Ram, how do you feel this series will contribute toward, mental health and personal growth of athletes, parents of athletes and fans?
Yeah, so that's an interesting question. And again, the objective, as I said, is not that we're going to achieve everything in one shot, because that's not possible. But again, I keep repeating and going back to that one has learnt through one's own life experiences. When I used to compete, and now later as a parent, right? Because one has worn both hats.
Yes.
So again, mental growth from a perspective that, again, I'm not generalizing this in a statement, but one has seen that typically people who have played sport, competed, and I'm not saying you have to compete at an international level, right? Any form of competition, even at a club level or whatever it is. I think, to me personally, and I've always said this, is that sport doesn't teach you only how to win. But I think more important in life is it teaches you even how to accept a loss and to get up. Because I think, and strive for better the next day. Typically you see nowadays, and I've seen this, and again, I'm not judging or I'm not generalizing, but people or kids who today play sport, I think the mental frame is better than those who don't. And I think, again, seeing our own kids, today they're exposed to so many things, today's generation, in terms of what is good and bad. Like even today, social media, we're going to use social media as a platform for this show.
Absolutely.
But it has a double-edged sword. So again, but at least when that energy and when the hormones are raging, if there's an exit or a kind of way to vent out that extra energy, which is through sport, I think physically and mentally it goes a long way. Now coming to athletes again, I think what better than to learn of people who have made it, right?
Sure.
Because again, everything in life is either you learn through your own mistakes,
correct,
or you read and listen to others who have gone through that path,
right,
and hopefully learn from that and make less or fewer mistakes.
Correct.
Because mistakes, two things, it costs money and it costs a lot of time.
Correct.
So if you can reduce both, I think one can always be that much better.
Right.
So I think the objective is, again, if the athletes that we have selected together and seen and they've achieved a certain or rather great level of success.
Correct.
If discussing with them, if other athletes can just pick up on a few things,
yes,
I think that's brilliant.
Right.
And that we would have served our objective. Coming to as parents, I think, again, that's a very sensitive topic, and we've had our ups and downs as parents of this thing. To be very specific, Ishan, in one of his tournaments, we had gone all the way to the US because he wanted to eventually play golf for a US college, and we had to go to the US. That was in 2022 when we had gone, rather 2021 of May, and I remember that COVID was at its peak. India was clocking 500,000 cases a day, and but we had to still brave it in that whole route of 15 days outside of US and all those kind of things. It was an interesting journey because at one level the positive of it was that it bonded us as a family to a large extent, huge, tremendous this thing. And again, as I said, as an athlete, you'll have ups and downs. They are looking also at the end of the day to the parent and what is their reaction.
Yes.
So I remember one tournament, he didn't play well. And I must say, yes, I had a bit of a negative reaction, which is where the mother kind of stabilized the whole thing. And I could see that I was trying to control myself, but maybe the emotions got the better of me. But it's all a learning. So, I mean, my limited advice stroke experience is that they will go through their ups and downs.
Yes.
I think all of them are then eventually looking at a parent to say, hey, look here, it's only a day. Or as you know now that you're a golfer, it's only one shot.
It's only one shot.
It's what you do with your next day and your next round.
Correct.
And with your next tournament. So I think if parents also take this back, in terms of from the show, that look, you have to handhold them. There will be, not everything is wonderful. There will be a lot of despair. And it's how you react during that time.
Correct.
Is what is going to even define what they end up doing as future athletes.
Yes.
And the role of, again, nutrition and even mental strength. Because again, I keep saying this, that at our level, you guys have done it at a much broader and much higher level. even at a college athlete level or a national level, there's so much more to it than just skill, right?
Correct, of course.
I mean, in terms of food, in terms of mentoring, in terms of mental strength, so many aspects.
Yes.
Injury.
Yes.
Because as an athlete, you go through so much injury as well.
Correct.
So it's the parents who need to handhold right through.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
especially when they're young.
And especially in India.
Absolutely. Young at that foundation years. So if they lose hope or if they don't support the way that is required,
Yes.
it's not easy. I'm not saying it's easy. It's very difficult to control your emotions or whatever else, and the cost, because it's ridiculously expensive.
True.
Any sport. So I think again at one level, if that helps parents, I think we'd have done what we set out to achieve.
So Ram, building on this massive relationship that parents need to have with children to help them go towards their goal, I have to tell you a personal story. So when I was 7 years old and I put on my my racing goggles and my little swimsuit for my first state championship, I won a silver medal and I was very charged up. I think I could conquer the world. And my dad asked me in that moment, he said, Rehan, what do you want to achieve in swimming? And I said, I want to be an Olympic gold medalist. And as years went on, I believed I gotten closer and closer to that goal, because then I was junior national to senior national champion and so on with my achievements. But at some point, when you get to your mid-20s, you sort of have an understanding of what your peak is as an athlete and how far you're going to go. Whether in my case it was, say, the Asian Games or the Commonwealth or turning Olympian. But it wasn't winning an Olympic medal, right? And to have the maturity, honestly, and the honesty to discuss this within a family, irrespective of what age group you are at, is so important, because I've seen several athletes fall off the graph even when they have much to do, because they believe that, boss, I had set this massive goal and now I don't see it happening, so I won't even do what I am capable of doing. For parents, I think it's also coming to terms with that, that reality. So do you feel like this show would again be relevant to we've not yet, we'll hopefully have an Olympic gold medalist on our show, so he'll be 1 in a billion, but we've got massive champions. So what's your take on that role of parents?
No, I think you're absolutely right, and it's great to you've given the story of your own kind of life through this. I think one needs to be realistic, right? No matter, I would say, forget be it the athlete or even the parents.
Yes.
Because at the end of the day, it's a game of numbers.
Correct.
And the probability of success.
Correct.
And if you look at any statistics, forget India, even across the world, if you're talking about a global champion, what are the percentage? It's like a 0.001% probability.
Absolutely.
Just to take your example and what you said, I remember the first time that we went coaching abroad for golf for our son, and one of the head coaches, after a few sessions, I asked him, so coach, what do you think? So he just looked at me in kind of shock, saying, what kind of an answer do you want?
Right.
And of course he said, look, what can I say? I mean, again, the probability of success is so small. So, I mean, my message today, right now, as we speak, or even through the show, is that, of course, that should not mean that you don't try.
Correct.
Right? Because there's a very fine line between accepting that you have reached to pushing yourself to saying, how much more can I go?
Yes.
So at no stage am I saying you don't try, but at the same time, one has to be realistic.
Correct.
That after a point, you got to be clear that, look, you've reached your potential. Because all of us have our potential in life, be it an athlete or otherwise.
True.
It's a question of reaching that potential and trying, and after a while accepting that, look, there are certain things beyond what you will achieve. And I think sometimes it's the parents who, athletes will realize that faster than anyone else.
Yes.
Because they know.
They know their bodies.
Exactly.
Yes.
They know whether their ability, their peer group, etc., etc. Their attempts through success ratio, etc. But I think it's the whole infrastructure around them, starting with the parents who just don't want to give up the whole dream that they've kind of built together. And then everyone starts counting on the number of years that you've invested and the amount of, thousands and lakhs that one has invested to reach a particular objective or stage in life.
Right.
I think if that kind of is understood, that, look, not everyone is going to be a champion.
Correct.
But the journey is great.
Yes.
And eventually you have an individual who's a more wholesome,
yes.
all-rounded, well-rounded person. I think that's
I think you can
half
define
the
that
thing
as
one.
success as well, right? It's all
Yeah,
perspective at the end of the day. It's a story you tell
Yeah.
yourself. I hit my peak at 24. I
Right.
swam for another 3 years. At 27, I realized that, yeah, I can train another 3 years and pick up a couple of more national medals. But I also need to, factor in what I'm doing with the next, say, 2 decades of my life. I'm excited to bring on, athletes that have lived this as well.
Right.
So they've gone through success, retirement, and have learned to reinvent themselves into coaches doing stuff to give back to sport, and also better parents because of their experiences. So I think the show will go a long way in not only mentoring athletes to be the best version of themselves, but also understanding, like you said, understanding what acceptance means, and obviously never to give up,
Correct.
but to know when to draw a line or to create a balance between investing so much in sport and investing in other facets of your life that you could be incredibly successful at, and you could define that as an Olympian or an Olympic medal. It just doesn't have to materialize as this. So Ram, why do you believe storytelling is such a powerful tool, especially when it comes directly from the athlete and his experience?
So Rehan, I think storytelling has been the most powerful tool for centuries, right? Anything that was communicated, when communicated in a story form, has always given much better outcome and results.
Correct.
And who better when the narrator of the story
lives and breathes the story.
Exactly. So, the objective was very clearly is that one is, of course, the medium, right, which is social media today.
Yes.
And digital. So, obviously now the kind of access that is there, and with the penetration of the smartphone, the platform is the most obvious choice.
Yes.
Then, of course, the form in which it is put, which is in terms of the storytelling and Q&A and interaction, again, is to make it as simple, as authentic, and as emotional, because I think you need a combination of authenticity which mixed with emotion and self-experience. I don't think anything can beat or go above that.
Yes.
And which is why the format, which is why getting in athletes to speak about themselves, and while we speak about all the athletes, I must speak about you as the anchor and the athlete as well. That what better than you anchoring it, because that adds to the whole credibility, your own life's experiences, and you see today when you've been through all of that, right? So you know what even to ask. I mean, today if I was asking about a subject which I didn't know, obviously my limitation in knowledge would also have an impact on the outcome of it.
Right.
Well, you've been through the whole, ups and downs, and your family's been through it, etc., etc. So to me, when we discussed this and when you agreed, I was most thrilled, because I said, Rehan will pull out the best out of everyone who's in front of him. And which is why, storytelling is the best form.
I hope I do justice to, what you've envisioned for the show as your host. But what I'll just build on, you mentioned
I'm just going to add to what you said.
Yes.
That whether, give result to that.
Yes.
You're an athlete. I've been a very micro athlete. And we don't give up.
We don't give up. We keep trying, and
we keep going higher and higher.
Exactly, and all our athletes will be exactly the same. Exactly. You talked about social media, Ram, and the power that it has. Speaking of my own social media, if you look at it and you look at some of the best athletes in the country, it's all a celebration of massive success. True. So it looks like we have this impenetrable armor. We are made of titanium steel, and life is just awesome, because that's what the story we want to tell the world. But what I'm looking forward to in this show is when I talk to athletes, and these will be real conversations, because you won't get more real than an athlete talking to you about his life journey. There's relevance again to his journey, where you sort of understand that underneath, all the celebration of who he is, he's a human being. True. And a 9-year-old watching this, or a 35-year-old watching it, or a parent will realize at that point to be kinder to each other, and also mainly to themselves. That if this human being who went on to do the great things he did has also got his insecurities, his flaws, we're going to have an athlete on the show that has gone through 8 years of struggle before finally reaching the pinnacle of his sport. That's a story that I would love for young people to hear, because it's at the end of 8 years, yes, he has that picture or that video on social media that's celebrating how great he is with 500 comments and 10,000 likes or whatever it may be. But who's celebrating how he got out of those bad days? And I think that's what I would love for the show also to have, to celebrate how they broke through their bad.
No, which is true, and which is why, as I said, you're taking through all the journey, which is ups and downs, but success is what draws attention.
Yes.
And draws followers.
Yes.
So yeah, I guess that's the prelude or the starting point into the whole journey of everything that they've been through.
So Ram, what role do you think diversity in terms of gender, background or sport plays in shaping the future of sport in India?
Well, at one level, a lot, and at one level, it should not. A lot, because I think from a gender point of view, I think today, and I speak with a certain amount of experience on this as a parent, girls are still discouraged to pursue sport, especially when it comes to outdoor sports.
Okay.
The reason is you'll get darker.
Sure.
Right? From our own example of our daughter who used to play golf, there would be times when some of the friends, very innocently of course, say, hey, look at how much you've tanned, because you'd see the tan lines, from the dark and the white. I mean, we didn't bother as parents, right? We just said, go have fun and see whatever happens. So I think that itself is a huge thing, and why even girls, I would say even for the boys.
Yes.
It's only today, and in today's environment and today's kind of social circle, where sport is now looked upon as an alternate career.
Sure.
Although historically, people were not encouraging kids to say, hey, go try out.
Correct.
So I think that as we progress as a country and we keep getting bigger and better as we are, I think that's going to open out. And of course, the success itself of sports people, men, women, Indian sports men and women, when they show success, that inspires, right? Success inspires everyone. So that's happening. The gender bias, I think, still exists across board, and you would know that much more than what I do, be it swimming or any of these outdoor sports where that whole cultural thing is still persisting. I think the more than 200 years of British rule is still fixated with that fairness that we have, or the desire that looks good. So that is definitely there. And I think from the other socio-economic issues are also a big concern, because yes, it is expensive.
Sure.
If you want to compete at a particular level, because it involves a lot of coaching, it involves a lot of nutrition, because you need as an athlete to have that. It can have injury, and then of course the last part, as you also know, right? The question is always for not only the individual but the family, that after investing all of this time, money, effort, what if we don't make it?
Right.
That what if is always a big thing, which kind of desists or this thing. So I think, one hopes that with time, with the way that different opportunities exist, things will open up. People look at it differently, and if we have more success, obviously government is doing a lot and can do a lot more, because one has to also accept the fact that we're a huge nation, so you may not be able to cater to everything, but slowly and steadily, if corporates come up, which I mentioned earlier also, there are many who are doing some incredible stuff. We'll definitely produce many more gold Olympians. I think we are yet to produce. No, we've had in the past.
We've had
for shooting in particular.
Yes.
But beyond shooting, if we can get.
Yes.
And let's hope.
So Ram, do you envision this particular series moving in another direction or a similar direction in terms of having guests such as not only athletes but also coaches, sports psychologists, nutritionists also coming in and giving their perspective on how to create a champion athlete?
No, absolutely. That's the objective, and we don't want to, do this like a one series thing only. And as we spoke, that it's the whole infrastructure around the athlete.
Sure.
While athlete is at the forefront of everything, It is the coach, it's the parents, it's the nutritionist, it's the mentalist, it's the physiotherapy. There's so many elements which you've been
Yes.
through. So of course, if the journey or the is only complete when all parts kind of
Sure.
fit in.
Yes.
And I think these are crucial elements in a life of any athlete. Whom, of course, the athlete is the person who's implementing everything. But I think without these elements or without these pieces in the puzzle, the puzzle will not be complete. So
Sure.
I think the objective definitely is to expand on all of this and give insights and learnings. And to me, the objective was to have people who are going to do this who have come from that background, right?
Yes.
Because then, as we discussed, it lends the authenticity, lends the personal experience. So just as we have we have a director and producer who herself was an athlete. So Nandita, you can jump in, because that was the whole objective, is to use her, who's going to also, through her direction, bring in that authenticity to the show.
I'll tell you something. She's very, very embarrassed. But when she scripted these questions and we had conversations about it, they are authentic questions and are so relevant because, like you say, she's been an athlete and she's also quite possibly, if not definitely, been through very similar career graphs
Right.
to all of us who decide to, pursue this sport or pursue any sport. Sorry.
Sure.
Last question, Ram. I believe it's going to be a fantastic show. Why did you decide to call it, Play Smart with Moha?
So yeah, the reason, we said Moha, Play Smart, is of course, one is because Moha is the brand that kind of we wanted to be leveraging on. Play Smart, because one is of course sport, and secondly, you have to be smart about what you do in life,
Sure.
regardless of what is sport. But
Sure.
this thing again, as we spoke about mentoring, about experiences, etc., they help you become smarter and hopefully help you cut time, stroke your errors. I'm not saying both of which will anyways happen, but
Correct.
at least it helps you reduce. And therefore, even there are so many parents of young golfers who ask me, hey, what did you do and how did you do this with your kids or whatever, and I'm happy to share it with them, because why not? Because the whole objective is to encourage all of these people. So that was one, that's why we said Play Smart. And also of course our Moha sunscreen when it comes to sport, especially regardless of whichever sport you play, indoor or outdoor, you're going to be outdoor even if you're an indoor athlete, because
Yes.
you gotta physically condition yourself or whatever.
Yes.
And you gotta be smart about it, right? Because when you're exposing yourself to sun and the UV rays, etc., you
Absolutely.
need a good sunscreen protection. And our Moha sunscreen is a perfect kind of sports sunscreen, because it's a first of its kind in India in terms of a spray. And it's got a clinical trial which proves beyond doubt its efficacy, etc. So yeah, that is why I think it lent itself beautifully, Moha Play Smart, one at the show level and what the message we wanted to give out, and the other thing at a brand stroke, even product level, that we wanted to give out.
Okay.
So, yeah. That is
Well
the reason.
said. Well said. Ram, I have to applaud you on two things. One is the perspective you bring as a parent, which is a very honest, relevant, truthful perspective of an athlete who has done very well for himself, and the lessons you so candidly shared on the show about your perspective. You're the first parent that we will have on the show, apart from, of course, all the athletes. And, secondly, just to create or to thought process behind creating a show like this, because you talked about, corporates and how they are involved in, having athletes on board. But here you are creating a property which is, which goes beyond, yes, it is a celebration of your brand, but it is, like I said earlier on, it is a celebration of our country's best athletes. And most importantly, the life lessons they have learned through incredible journeys in sport. And that is what I'm so excited for. That while I have, spoken to, interacted with athletes from all over India and the world through my journey, I get to do it all over again, and without having to put on a pair of swimming trunks and diving into freezing cold water every morning. And yes, our audiences will find massive relevance to what they have to say, more their downs than their ups, and just in general to be inspired, by our champions. So when you talk about psychologists and support staff and more people eventually coming on the show, you realize as families who go into this journey, which is a very long journey, that it takes more than just one
True.
athlete to create, the fruition of a goal, a realization of a goal. So much information will soon be available for our current and past sporting fraternity to celebrate sport in India. And I think that it comes from a very honest, pure space, which is what you've envisioned when we initially started talking about this show, and it will shine through, most brightly through our athletes and through what we are creating.
Yep, let's hope.